Hi, my name's Mike. I make music as domestic scene, and recently I started a new project building my own DIY Eurorack rig. Who knows? My ambition at this point is to make everything myself, but I imagine at some point there's going to be a sexy module that I'll just buy off the shelf or something. There's a couple I can think of off the top of my head, but yeah, so far it's all going to be DIY, at least for the foreseeable future. And today I'm building a Penrose Quantizer by Sonic Postions. And I have about an hour right now. I randomly have the afternoon off. I think this is the first time I've ever made a video while the sun's still out. So you can see behind me, trying to block a little bit of it, but some light coming through my window. Which is unusual and nice for a change. So yeah, and I'm gonna probably not finish this up immediately. I'm gonna have to go pick up my daughter from daycare at a certain point, but we'll get it started and then I'll finish later tonight or something. So before I get into this, I kind of want to circle back and talk about some stuff from my first video. That was the first thing I'd ever built, which was the Bufaco Excalibus power supply unit. And if you watch the video, you know it works, it went pretty well, but I did something in that video which is maybe not the best idea, and I want to just talk about it quickly and point it out. I encountered a couple of obstructions in the PCB board when I was trying to insert some resistors and one of the resistors in one of the LEDs. The holes seem to have been blocked by something. There's a possibility that it was some stray solder. I don't think that's the case though. I think it might have had to do just something left over from the manufacturing of the PCB board or something like that. But what I did to try to get past that point was I took my my tweezers. They got a really fine point on them, and I pushed the point of the tweezers into the hole to try to create some space to get the components through. And even while I was doing it, I felt a little nervous, knowing that there was probably a better way to go about it. And yeah, so I've talked to a few people, some people on Reddit, a friend of mine from back in the US, some various people had some advice for me, and I wanted to just let you know that yeah, don't stick your tweezers in a hole. There's better ways to go about it. Some of the better ideas that were pointed out were like a really fine drill bit. You could use that possibly gently, or a really fine Dremel was brought up as a possibility. But there's different methods. I wish I was an expert in it and could really go into it, but the really important thing to say is you could probably damage a PCB board by just trying to use brute force on it. It's possible that if I had messed up while I was trying to poke the tweezers through there, I could have like dislodged one of the metal contacts from the PCB board or something like that. So don't do that. So anyway, with all that said, let's get on to this build and make the CV Quantizer Penrose by Sonic Postions. Right, so this kit doesn't come with printed instructions like the Bufaco kit did. Just some simple instructions for using the module. So I have the build documentation pulled up on a computer nearby, so I'll use that. And the first thing it looks like I need to do is break off these bits here and separate these two different parts of the PCB board. Doesn't feel like I can comfortably do this by hand, so I'm gonna have to go get a pair of pliers. Yeah. Okay, so these are probably a bit heavy duty, but they'll do the trick. done. So now I just need to take a look at these resistors, identify the different values and see which ones I'm looking at. Depending on which board I'm looking at, I guess that's probably how this is set up. I gotta do this board first. So I'll set this one aside. And then I'll just get the resistors for this board. I'm gonna try to make a little better use of my magnifying glass this time to identify these ones. So I see this one with the yellow stripe is a 1M. There's another one here, so I'll keep these together. No. Where's that orange? So I think I just learned a lesson. This is not something you should really rush through. Trying to look at the stripes on the resistors is pretty tough, especially there's one that's like brown, black, black, brown, brown, and one brown, black, black, red, brown, and trying to find which one is which is pretty difficult. So what I did was I just took some time, went through and tested all of these resistors, and I think this is something that I'm going to have to do going into most projects. What I did, just take the multimeter, and if you set it to test for resistance, there's the little symbol. It's like a Greek omega symbol, and yeah, so if I'm testing this 10K resistor, you just put your test leads, I don't know what to call those, but you just make contact on either side of the resistor, and this is reading, it's reading 9.98, and in the upper little bit you can see there's the omega symbol and a K in front of it. I don't know if it comes up in the camera, but that's a difference, because so this is the 10K, and if I look at what's one that's not? So this one's just a 220. So if I do that one, I get 219.7, and there's no K before the omega symbol that's showing up right here. I hope that comes through, but I kind of doubt it. Regardless, testing these was a good idea. So now I've got everything labeled, got it organized. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to go get my daughter now, so I'll come back in a couple of hours once she's asleep and keep going. So till then. All right, so I took care of my kiddo, made some dinner, we sang some songs, and she's sleeping now. I've organized all my resistors, so finally, hours after I intended to start, it's time to actually start soldering. So let's get to it. Okay, so we've got the resistors sitting flat on the board. I'm just going to go ahead and start adding in the rest of the kind of low-lying components for this, diodes, capacitors, etc. And if anything seems odd, I'll take a break and talk about it, but I'm just gonna go through this quickly, I think, or as quickly as I can. So these, so we can get that focus. So these fuses, they actually have this strange bend in the legs, and the instructions say that you need to, see if I can get this, you need to kind of just snip them here so you can get them in and solder them like that. There's not a whole lot of exposed metal. Maybe you can see it, the ceramic coating kind of goes most of the way down that leg, so there's not a lot of area to snip. So this is going to be probably a little bit tricky. I'm going to take a look at what I need to do before I actually do cut this and see how it goes. All right, so you can see that, snipped it off. There's a little bit of a hook left in from where I snipped on one of those legs, but I don't know if it'll be a problem. See, try fitting it in there and see what happens. Yeah, it's a little tight. Definitely the trickiest part of this so far. It's just that the piece is small, and so it's hard to really control it. There's no room to try to bend the legs, and the holes are just slightly wider than the way that these legs are sitting right now. See if I can just bend them out a little bit, that might make it easier. Right, so now we're at a bit of an odd part. There's more resistors to put in, yeah, instead of what you would typically do, where you bend one leg, bend the other leg down, and put them in where this part is coming flat down on the board. These ones, you're supposed to bend all the way like this, so that both legs go down and these just actually stand up on the PCB board. So I'll take a look at the instructions a little further and then put these in, but that's what we're looking at. Bending these over and inserting them so that they stick up above the surface like that. Okay, so those are all in there. You can see what I mean. These resistors are all standing up instead of sitting flat on the board. Alright, so standing resistors went okay. Now there's one more capacitor, ceramic capacitor that go in that is polarized. So it's got the longer leg that needs to go on the positive side, C14. So I might as well put on these electrolytic capacitors too at the same time. These go C11, 12, 13. So this part, this is the voltage regulator. Let's see if I can get this to focus. Okay, so if you can see, there's 3 legs on it, and they're kind of aligned in a flat plane. And when you look at where it goes on the PCB, it's right there, and those are not a flat plane. It's a bit of a triangle, so you gotta bend the central leg and be careful of the orientation. So the other thing to note about this, see there's like a little flat edge to it, so that needs to go towards the edge of the PCB board. So this middle leg needs to fold, or it needs to bend back away from that flat edge. So, yeah, so just bent it out. And now I can get it, I think, roughly in there. Yep. So we got it in, and then the flat edge of that part, which is here, flat edge against the flat of the PCB board, because this is polarized. Similar with the transistor. This goes in Q2. This one, the three pins being in a flat plane is fine because it goes there, and all of that's flat, so you don't have to bend anything on this one. But you do have to pay attention to the polarity. So the flat edge of this little plastic piece, again, is oriented towards the edge of the PCB board. Right, so now I'm pretty sure that the intention is for me to snap off the pins that I need from this. So I need a 2x3 section of pins here. Again, with my heavy duty pliers that I probably don't need. See how this goes. Well, it didn't go great. I got 2x2, which I don't think that there's anything going on inside of that plastic. I think I could just snap off 2 more and build it up. But I'm gonna try to get this to snap where I want it. And I'm pretty almost positive I have more of these header pins like this just in my supplies. So if I run short with what's here, then I can probably just make what I need out of the supplies that I have. But that was not as simple as I thought it was going to be. I don't really know the best method to do this. Okay, so I think it broke weird because if I have the pliers flat on one side and squeeze, there's an angle. So there's an open space where the upper nose of this plier is hitting. And then if I start to pull against that, it's pulling only really over here, which is probably what caused me the problem. And that's an issue both ways that I go. So I think if I hold the plier this way, I'm making contact on both sides of the third section in. Well, it's good in theory, but I'm not getting enough leverage. Oh, yeah, that worked better. So, if you're going to make a little snap off of these header pins, I'd suggest trying to grab it this way. You get a little bit better control. Right. And that's it. That's the first PCB board done. It took me about 2 hours to do. I'm sure I can get a little faster at that eventually. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that. It's getting pretty late, so I think I need to stop it here and come back later and put on the rest of the parts, put these two together, and finish this module up. See you then. Right, so it's tomorrow today. Back, gonna finish up this build. Running into some problems, but it's not to do anything with the actual electronics here. It's just, turns out, since I'm using 2 camera angles, that I'm just burning through space on my hard drive. So this is gonna be a close race to try to film this whole thing and be able to edit it. I don't wanna make this a 2-part thing, so I'm just gonna actually film with just the overhead camera while I do the build. Probably just gonna go quickly through it and not really pause a whole lot, but if I need to, I'll turn on this side camera and show any detail stuff that I need to talk about. In other news today, while I was out and about, I got some fancy new safety glasses. They're bifocal, so they have a magnification lens in the bottom, which I think might really be useful to me. So I'm gonna get to it, hopefully finish this thing off, and yeah, let you know what I thought of it. So I have a single 1K resistor left, and this, where'd it go? R4 on this board, this is calling for 10K. So either there was a mistake in what I was sent for the stock resistors, or somehow I messed up on this board. So I'm wondering if there's a 10K over here that should be a 1K. So I'm gonna see if I can possibly test that. I'm gonna go back and look at where there was supposed to be a 1K, R21. It's pretty buried down in there. So this should be 1K. Brown, black, black, brown, brown. Looks correct. Man, these goggles with the bifocals are pretty rad. It's a lot easier to see what's going on. Brown, black, black, brown, brown. I don't know if that says more about how small the components are or my eyes, the age that I'm at. So this looks like it's a 1K. Which is a little reassuring. I don't want to have to try to pull that out. Let's see if there's a way for me to test it. Theoretically, if I put the multimeter on those 2 pins, I should get the resistance between them, right? 0.998K, so that's a 1K. So that's correct. I wonder if any of the standing resistors were 1Ks. None of the standing resistors. So I got two 1Ks. So I have an extra 1K and I'm short a 10K, which is fine, I believe, because I have some extra parts. Which brings me to a note that I was going to put into this video, which is that before I started building any of these projects, I did buy some extra parts. And for example, one of the things that I bought was on Thonk. There's some kind of like DIY essential packs. So I think because I broke this bit off, I don't know if it's gonna prove to be important or not. I kind of think that there's extra stuff that I don't need on this strip, but I think I have extras of these from that starter pack that I got, the DIY Essentials. It's just some common parts. And then I did also buy just a bunch of resistors and capacitors and stuff from Mouser, because if you like look up a bill of materials and it says that you need, like, say 4 10K resistors, and you see the price for each of those individual resistors, if you actually like increase the quantity, so say from 4 to 50, like significantly, suddenly the part price drops a lot in a lot of cases. So I just bought a bunch, so I should have an extra 10K resistor, and then I can keep going on this board. But I'm gonna pause and go look through my stuff and be back in a minute. Right, there they are. Whole bunch of them. So I've got my spare 10K resistor and I can keep going on this. So I'll just snip that guy off. Yeah, I'm feeling really glad that I bought spare parts before I started this project. Okay, on to the buttons. So at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that there might be a method for getting solder or something out of a hole. And this hole is plugged and it's definitely shiny. Probably the most important thing that happened while I was shooting there was that I ran into another one of the holes that was blocked. And this time I could see that it was blocked with some solder. It was just clearly the metallic in there. So I touched it with the soldering iron and it kind of melted a bit, flowed. And so everything that I said at the beginning of this video about clearing a hole like that, I started going through what I was talking about, and suddenly it just, I don't know why I wasn't thinking this. This is, well, just because I haven't done this a lot, clearly, but it's really obvious that all you need is copper wire. That's what this stuff's for. So you just heat up, well, you can see the solder probably if this focuses. On the tip of this copper wire there's some silver because yeah, I just dabbed a little bit of flux onto that hole, put the copper wire directly over the hole, put the tip of the soldering iron on that, and then the copper wire sucked the solder right out. I was able to put the part in, but I missed it all because my SD card was full on the camera and I was just in the flow and not paying attention and didn't realize that it had stopped recording. So at this point I've continued on. I've gotten all of the buttons in and transferring the footage from the other camera to my computer. So I guess I'm going to take a short break and come back, format that card like I should have done before, but hey, thinking about a lot of things. So. And then just need to push this LED up into place before we solder. And I think we push it all the way through so that it's sitting out from the board, or we could leave it flush. What would look cooler? That's the question. I think I like it flush. When it's sitting out, it looks like a button, and it's not. So I'm just going to take a piece of tape, while that's being held in the right spot, I'm going to solder that in. I'm pretty sure I'm in a good spot to solder everything else too, but I'll just double check. Well, there it is. That is my first Eurorack module. So I've already done a continuity test on this module using the multimeter just to check to see if there was any apparent shorts, and everything looks okay. So I guess the only thing left to do is to power it up and see if the lights turn on. Which they do, so that's good. I'm not gonna try to do any calibration or run any audio through it right now, or CV rather, because yeah, it's the only module that I have at the moment, so it doesn't seem like it would be much fun to have a CV quantizer with no crazy CV signal going into it. So I'll do that sometime later, but right now I'm going to call that a success. So I hope you found this video useful, or at least entertaining, and yeah, I hope my theory that watching me make some mistakes and learn some lessons from making those mistakes is helping somebody out there along in their first days getting into DIY electronics or building Eurorack modules. If you like this video, please like the video below, subscribe to my channel. Love to have you along for the ride, so cheers.